With your help, we're going to travel all across the country to every community, urban, rural, and suburban, and we're going to campaign for every last African American vote in 2020. From the beginning of our campaign, we took on the Washington lobbyists and the special interests and corporate media. See how that's working? They come at you, but you know what? We're winning. We're winning like nobody's ever won before. We took on the corrupt media. A lot of it's corrupt. And the political establishment that has failed America for decades and failed the African American community for decades. And we're starting to learn about things that we never thought were possible even. Exactly 3 years ago tonight, on November 8th, 2016, the people spoke and we took our country back, and that's what's happening. We won an extraordinary victory for all Americans, and 1 year from now, we're going to win another incredible victory, and we are going to do it with a groundswell of support from hardworking African-American patriots. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, because altogether we've never done better. We've never done better than we're doing now. The Republican Party was the original home of African-Americans, and now African-Americans are returning. It was a 100-year trip, if you think about it. Paris, it was 100 years, right? And now you're returning and coming back to the Republican Party. People forget Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. We have to remember that. And you're coming back in record numbers. We're going to make 2020 a chance. We're going to give it really something. We're going to make it a chance that you take, but it's not a chance because you know exactly what's happening. You've seen, you know, when I first came out and started talking about vote for me, that was taking a chance because I wasn't a politician. Now everything I said has come true, except more so, much more than we ever thought possible. When we look at the numbers, and we're going to go into the numbers, we're going to make 2020 a year of change in black communities all across the country. We've already been doing it. And black Americans will join our mission to protect their jobs, defend their safety, and to create a brighter future for every citizen. Together we will make America greater than ever before. That's what's happening right now, and you're a big part of what's going on.
A new letter from Republican lawmakers is demanding that Adam Schiff testify as to his contacts with the so-called whistleblower. More on that just ahead, but first, tonight we are inching closer and closer to truth and justice and holding those that abuse power accountable. It's, I think, going to take a while because there's probably so many of them. The Durham probe is now a full-scale criminal investigation. The Horowitz report is expected to be out this month. I know we were also told that last month, but hopefully we'll get it this month. And a day of reckoning is on the horizon for the deep state. From the rigged investigation into Hillary Clinton to the dirty Steele dossier to rampant evidence of FISA abuse, the media mob continues to ignore the real 2016 election scandal. And tonight, we're learning even more about a massive media scandal because journalist Lee Smith, in a new bombshell book, has uncovered more evidence of a possible pay-to-publish scheme involving Fusion GPS and high-profile reporters. And as our own Greg Jarrett points out, the so-called whistleblower may even be implicated in the upcoming FISA report due to his alleged ties to John Brennan and others. Now, the hysteria we see over Ukraine is just the latest chapter in what's been a 3-year-long campaign. You guys, it's been that long. To think about it, 3 years of constant lies, smears, besmirchments to take down a duly elected president. It is a never-ending impeachment obsession from even before, I would argue, before his actual election. This is now about overturning the results of the 2016 election and overturning the will of the American people. Now, joining me now for reaction, author of the book Witch Hunt, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, along with former U.S. Attorney Brett Tolman, and author of the book Plot Against the President, journalist Lee Smith. let me start with you with this news about Nunez sending the letter saying we want to have you as a witness. I find it, of course, troubling because the Democrats can veto whatever it is the Republicans want. What's your take on this?
It underscores the unfairness of this. To think of it, if you want to call a witness, you have to get the other side's permission. When I tried cases, I didn't have to turn to the prosecutor or the plaintiff's attorney and say, may I please call my first witness? No, you may not. So, the first witness you want to call would be the whistleblower. Schiff will say, denied. I'd like you, Mr. Schiff, to testify. Denied. I'd like your staff that had contact with it was denied. This is anathema to fundamental fairness and due process, but it does underscore that, as well as the conflict of interest. The guy presiding over the impeachment hearing is a fact witness himself, concealing his contact with a whistleblower who's not a whistleblower under the law. This is terrible.
Brett, this is what the American people are saying. It comes down, forget about your party, about partisanship, or whether you like Trump or not. This is inherently unfair. The Americans are willing to have this investigation happen, but they want to be able to trust the outcome. And of course, process is the thing that leads us to the truth. So when we hear about this, and clearly I think the Republicans want to point out this unfairness, and this request makes it clear that there is a conflict, and that, of course, Schiff is going to say, no, I'm not going to do it. And it's going to highlight these things to the American people. Is that a large part of what matters here when it comes to how this plays out?
Well, this is at the heart, and I love what Greg said, because fairness and due process are important in this procedure that's going forward, and the American people aren't seeing it. And as a prosecutor, I remember being told and taught, fastest way you could throw your case out of court is if the government loses credibility, if the government can't be trusted. Well, here you have the government launching an investigation of a sitting president based on suspicious facts surrounding a whistleblower that appears to be politically connected, and then they lie about their interactions with the whistleblower. For me, this would be an absolute nightmare. I wouldn't want to touch this case with a 10-foot pole. But why are they embracing it? Because they've lost at every point until now. And as you said, they've been focused on impeachment since 2016.
These people are sick.
We're seeing here, at the same time, ranging from the Russia dossier hoax to this, right. There's not just a sloppiness to what's been done, but people who expect not to be found out. But most of all, they also expect it to be, backed up by media. They've worked with media through this procedure. Yes. Tell us what you think, because we've got so many elements here of people. It's all hearsay and gossip, and they've relied on newspaper stories. What's your take on that element?
Well, I think what you were saying before about this started before the election is absolutely correct. And in my book, I have different sources who show documents and sources that show that this began in March 2016. And you saw, before the election, you saw a coordination between Clinton operatives and the press. This lasted until the election. And then after the election, Clinton operatives were less important than Obama officials. This is one of the things we're seeing now. The whistleblower issue, the push to impeach the president, this is on a continuum. This has been going on for more than 3 years, and I think it's, with all due respect, I think it's a little more than unfairness. I think we are testing the patience of the American public.
Yeah, we can, I guess, take Mark Zaid at his word that, in fact, he used the word coup. Right, Greg?
Yeah, he did. Back in 2017.
They have no shame about that. They're almost proud of it. They were still on the Twitter. They didn't bother to delete them. And then we've got this, the other whistleblower's attorney, a so-called whistleblower, sending a cease and desist letter to President Trump. What is that all about?
It's an embarrassment to the two lawyers who wrote it. Cease and desist from exercising your First Amendment right to defend yourself, to rebut a false accusation, and they insanely cite 3 laws: witness tampering, The president doesn't even know who the witness is. You can't tamper with a witness you haven't identified. Obstruction of justice, nothing has been obstructed, that's for sure. And finally, retaliation against a witness. If you actually read the statute, the witness has to have been killed or harmed already. He hasn't been. This is ridiculous.
They seem to be trying to criminalize, when it comes to the president, self-defense and the ability to engage in your defense. The ability also as president, because one of the reasons he's elected was American people noticed that there was something wrong. There was some shenanigans, that there was maybe not the rule of law, that there was a separate kind of set of justice for people in general. Trump's election itself was a statement and a desire that we wanted things to be more clear and confronted. He's doing that, and as I've noted, the impeachment, the effort for impeachment is almost necessary if we were right in 2016, that this was inevitable, and now we see historically that it seems to have been expected and arranged for quite some time. Gentlemen, Greg, Brett, and Lee, thank you very much for joining me tonight. Before I go to you, Harmeet, I want to mention that Congressman Nunes just tonight sending a letter to Congressman Schiff saying, prior to the start of your public show trial next week, at least one additional closed-door deposition must take place. Specifically, I request that you sit for a closed-door deposition before the House Intelligence, Foreign Affairs, and Oversight Committees. So now we've got, Harmeet, Nunes saying to Schiff, sit your butt down in this chair. It's time to find out what you know, what you did, what role you played in this whole thing, because now we're hearing that in addition to the whistleblower, I understand that Fiona Hill was in communication with him as well.
So was the ambassador. The ambassador who Vindman a week ago was pinning so much credibility on and defending her honor of apparently has potentially perjured herself with the fact that these emails have come out showing that she was in communication with Schiff's staff. So Schiff is a material witness here. That seems to be clear. So at a minimum, he should be recusing himself. And secondly, he should sit for a deposition so we can find out what role he played in orchestrating and potentially soliciting the whistleblower complaint and the witnesses appearing in his sham of a show trial there in the skiff.
All right, you know, somehow this reminds me of the Russia collusion delusion, where everything they accuse the president of, it boomerangs back to them. But anyway, Harmeet and Bob, thanks so much for being with us this evening. Judicial Watch analysis of the Obama White House visitor logs reveals Alexandra Chalupa, the DNC contractor who colluded with the Ukrainians to smear the Trump 2016 campaign, visited the White House, get this, visited the White House 27 times. Joining me now is Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, and Kevin Schiff, a former CIA officer and a real whistleblower. All right, Tom Fitton, you know what I think of you and Judicial Watch. You do great work. So what Judicial Watch has uncovered here is simply stunning. It seems like the real collusion story is between Ukraine and the left.
And the Obama White House, which of course is the left. So you have 27 visits of this DNC contractor who's accused of colluding directly with the Ukrainian embassy to dig up dirt on Paul Manafort and attack Donald Trump. And then the other half of this alleged whistleblower, that person, I don't know if he is the whistleblower, but he worked at the Obama White House. We looked to see who he was visiting with. And a lot of people, like Victoria Nuland, who was involved in the dossier, the Ukrainian who was behind the Black Ledger leak, and other Soros operation people out of the Open Society Foundation were meeting with him. So what's interesting about all of this, Judge, is that it highlights that this Ukraine story is about the Obama White House in a significant way, because you have the alleged whistleblower working there, dealing on that policy, and then you have the DNC operative virtually having a desk over there.
So let me ask you, Kevin, you're a real whistleblower. Is this guy a whistleblower or a leaker? Now, we're not supposed to mention his name, so don't mention his name.
Sure.
I don't know
Judge.
what we're protecting, but whatever.
Yeah, sure. No, Judge, this is not a whistleblower. This person is a leaker. There's no question about that. He's not even protected under whistleblower statutes because he secretly went and met with Schiff's staff. So, no, he's not only is he not just a leaker, he's a political operative. And we know from Judicial Watch's great work that the logs show that this person met with the executive officer of a Soros-funded organization. This is while he was in the White House. What in the world is a CIA officer doing meeting with a Soros organization that is bent on eliminating U.S. sovereignty and now removing the President of the United States? I think he's got some answering to do.
Well, all right, I want to read this to you, Tom. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett said that the whistleblower could be implicated in the much-anticipated FISA abuse report, saying, quote, the reported direct relationship with James Brennan, the Democratic National Committee operative who dug up dirt on the Trump campaign during the 2016 election, and Susan Rice makes them a likely candidate to be, at the very least, called as a witness in cases that are likely to start following the FISA report. Do you agree, Tom?
Well, certainly someone representing the president would want to talk to this alleged whistleblower. And in addition to that, his communications with Schiff weren't protected by the law. And if classified information was communicated to Schiff's staff, there may be legal issues for him. And of course, if he was talking to people like Vindeman outside the ordinary course of his duties, there could be other problems there as well. And, you know, and what is Schiff doing? He's protecting himself as much as the whistleblower, who he really doesn't care about. It's only a tool. He's protecting himself because he's been caught up in a scandal. The idea that Schiff is still running the Intelligence Committee is one of the most outrageous issues related to the corrupt coup that's currently happening. Schiff should be nowhere near this investigation. He's compromised ethically, and he should be conflicted out and under investigation, not conducting an investigation.
You know, Kevin, what's amazing to me is that when they start, and I agree with Tom totally, I think this isn't about protecting the whistleblower. It's about protecting the fact that Schiff was part of the game plan here. And now we're hearing about a tweet from 2017, the whistleblower's lawyer, Mark Zaid, saying, the coup, the rebellion, it's begun, impeachment is next. I mean, this has been, you know, they've been planting the seed for this for a long time.
And the only cure for that Trump derangement syndrome is 4 more years.
So you've got Schiff trying to protect himself, but don't you think that at the end of the day, Kevin, that Americans are saying, who really gives a darn about Ukraine policy? You know, where's the high crime and misdemeanor here?
That's right. Oh, you're right, Judge. You know, the Russia collusion coup failed, and now they're trying another one, and it is so shoddy, it's ridiculous. And it's pretty obvious to see, and I am convinced, as we all are, this one's going to fail too. But that's what this is. This is another attempted coup by a so-called CIA analyst who essentially was a plant and a political operative that was probably very well planted there by John Brennan during the initiation of the coup. That's what's going on here. This is another coup attempt to remove Donald Trump from office, and I think that's going to come out for everybody to see.
Well, and you know, if in truth, Tom, the last few seconds that we have, I mean, if this guy is a member of the CIA and this is an intelligence community coup, then what we've got is just a repeat of Russia collusion. They're going to lose again.
Oh, yeah, but it's even more low rent than the Russia collusion scam. This is the equivalent of office cooler conversation,
right,
rumor mongering, and gossip about what the boss is doing, and they don't like it, and they're griping. This is the gossip girl impeachment, a bunch of bureaucrats complaining about the boss, and the idea that it would be basis for impeachment is an absurdity.
It is amazing. Anyway, Tom and Kevin, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
If you don't have kids in school, you might imagine that the worst trends in American education are pretty much confined to our most liberal cities. You know, in Seattle, math is racist. In New York City, gifted and talented programs are oppressive. In Berkeley, God knows what they're doing. The left has abandoned education in favor of naked political propaganda. You know that. But it's comforting to think it's not happening near you or your children. Unfortunately, that's not true. It is happening, probably right down the street from where you are now. An investigation by this show found a radical new curriculum in schools across the country, from Arizona to Iowa. The program is called Deep Equity. It's produced by a for-profit education company called Corwin, which is based in California. Corwin describes Deep Equity as a teacher training program that is, quote, aimed at producing real school improvement for equity and social justice. So how does Deep Equity do that? Well, mainly by attacking the students on the basis of their skin color. According to Deep Equity, America is based on a hierarchy of various oppressions. Men oppress women, Christianity oppresses Islam, English oppresses Spanish, white people oppress everyone. And by the way, if you have a problem with this explanation, you are yourself entrenching oppression. You're part of the problem. According to Corwin, differences in academic performance have nothing to do with culture or effort. They are purely the product of racism. In order to fight that racism, teachers are instructed on different types of, quote, white identity orientations. This is all pseudoscience, you may notice. Many white people, teachers are told by Deep Equity, are defined by their, quote, ignorance and supremacy. Other whites, meanwhile, quote, question the systemic issues that have caused whites to be so much in a superior position. The curriculum offers what it calls a, quote, white allies action agenda. Among the items on that list, quote, acknowledge the reality of white racial privilege, educate other white people, use your privilege to work for racial and social justice. Feel sick yet? According to one teacher we spoke to who has used this curriculum, the Deep Equity curriculum forces teachers to become racial activists. Not that you need to interview anyone to find that out. It's obvious. They're not teaching anything having to do with math or science or English or language. They're teaching racial activism, certain to confuse and wound and divide our kids of all colors. So where exactly is Deep Equity being taught? Well, all over, it turns out. For example, Fauquier County, Virginia, a place that voted for Donald Trump by 25 points in 2016. And yet Deep Equity somehow is now part of that county's teacher training. Most people aren't even aware of it, but it's there. Deep Equity is also used in West Des Moines, Iowa. It's in Chandler, Arizona. We could go on. It may, in fact, be coming to your school district soon, assuming it's not already there. It'll be forced on your kids, and you'll pay for it with your tax dollars. No one will ask you whether you like it or not, and don't bother to complain. Deep Equity orders teachers, and we're quoting now, to explicitly reject and resist any parents who disagree with it. Got it?
These people are sick.